Namaskar, hello and welcome to the day two of the Integral Indic Intelligence Forum 2025. By way of this forum, we are commemorating the six momentous decades of the advent of the political doctrine of integral humanism, which somewhat differentiates Bharat from the other two extreme political ideologies from across the globe. It was on these four seminal days of 22nd to 25th of April in the year 1965 at Mumbai that Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji introduced this seminal doctrine of integral humanism. And as we can see on the backdrop, and as we covered it in greater detail on day one, on 22nd of April, that according to Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji, the primary concern in India should be to develop an indigenous development model that has human beings as its core focus. It is opposed to both Western capitalist individualism and the Marxist socialism, though it welcomes Western science. Integral humanism seeks a middle ground between capitalism and socialism, evaluating both systems on their respective merits while being critical of their excesses and alienness. And before we take today's deliberation further forward, the lecture two, जिसका वाचन हम लोग by way of this vachan we are commemorating uh, this life transforming, this I would say stability providing doctrine. We would like to keep a minute of silence for the slain Indians who were so barbarically, they were the carnage which happened धरती पर स्वर्ग जम्मू में पहलगाम में जो एक टेररिस्ट अटैक हुआ भारत वंशियों को चुन चुन कर आतंकवादियों ने वहाँ मारा, उनकी याद में उनके प्रति श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित करते हुए हम 1 मिनट का मौन रखते हुए और फिर हम आज के सत्र को प्रारंभ करेंगे. ओम शांति. ओम शांति. ओम शांति. The very purpose of any political doctrine is to really give a guidance to the collective nations on the planet per se, and the kind of turmoil which we are witnessing out of the VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. This is on one side of it all, and as Swami Vivekananda mentioned in his September 11th address in 1893, that the religious bigotry which has taken over the world so very prominently is causing so much of unrest all over. Those are other deeper issues, but then as a political doctrine of integral humanism, and this lecture which was given on 23rd of April, which also happens to be the World Book Day, and it is also commemorated by the United Nations as the English Language Day. The United Nations celebrates the various official language days all through the year, and we just had the Chinese Language Day on the 20th of April. तो भारतवर्ष का जो वसुधैव कुटुंबकम का भाव है, भारतवर्ष का जो आनो भद्रा क्रतवो यंतु विश्वतः का भाव है, हम देखेंगे कि आज के इस द्वितीय लेक्चर में इंटीग्रल ह्यूमैनिज्म में एकात्म मानवतावाद में किस प्रकार से दीनदयाल जी इन्हीं जो भारत के आर्ष वाक्य हैं, आर्ष जो ऋचाएँ हैं भारत की, जो बातें हैं, उसको भी कैसे उद्धृत कर रहे हैं। I would request Dr. Surbhi to do the honors on this slide one, and then we will take it on forward. Dr. Surbhi, you have to unmute yourself, please. Yeah.
My pranams to one and all. And as the slide 2 says, even after 17 years of independence, we have still to decide what direction we should adopt to realize our cherished dream of all round development in the lives of our countrymen. Yesterday, we had seen that even after 17 years of independence, we have still to decide what direction we should adopt to realize our cherished dream of all round development in the lives of our countrymen. Normally, people are not prepared to seriously consider this question. They think only of the problems which they face from time to time.
So that's why the need of a political philosopher who can guide the collective consciousness of a nation, or a civilized nation, as we call it, as civilization, uh, over there. And today's lecture, the lecture two, is almost double in complexity in the content what Deen Dayal ji has tried to cover. So we will try to pace it out, and so I will try to take it over. That sometimes economic problems are viewed with concern and an attempt is made to resolve them. And at other times, social or political problems come to the forefront, claiming attention. And that's where somewhere Deen Dayal ji says that all these problems, they cannot be seen in isolation. They have to be all seen in a totality. And that's where integration come into being. Not knowing fundamentally the direction in which we are to go, all these efforts are not accompanied by sufficient enthusiasm, nor do they give a feeling of satisfaction to the people engaged in these efforts. These efforts produce only a fraction of the results which they ought to have produced. And जब हम ये lectures को सुन रहे हैं दीनदयाल जी के integral humanism को, तो we should always keep it in mind that it was 60 years back. A lot of it is still contemporary in today's times, but then Deen Dayal ji was reflecting upon द पीड़ा, एक पॉलिटिकल वर्कर की एक जो पीड़ा है, एक फिलोसोफर की एक जो पीड़ा है, जो उस समय वो अनुभूत करते थे. तो दैट इज द कॉन्टेक्स्ट इन विच ही स्पोक on 23rd of April 1965, 60 years on this very day. So Deen Dayal ji, the section is modern versus ancient. एक बड़ी ही डिबेट है कि हमें मॉडर्निटी अपनानी है या हमें पास्ट में ही, भूत में ही रहना है, भूत में या भविष्य में. सो दोज हु एडवोकेट, दीनदयाल जी का उत्तर बड़ा ही विलक्षण है, एज वी विल सी इट आउट हियर, दैट दोज हु एडवोकेट्स some definitive direction include two distinct groups of people, and there are some who suggest that we must go back to the position when we lost our independence and proceed from there. On the other hand, there are people who would like to discard all that has originated here in Bharat and are not ready to think about it. They seem to think that Western life and thoughts are the last word in progress, and all of it should be imported here if we are to develop. So, ये दो एक्सट्रीम्स की बात दीनदयाल जी रखते हैं. इस तरह के दो वर्ग के लोग आज भी विद्यमान हैं. And then he says that both these lines of thought are incorrect. Uh, Thought, though they do represent partial truths, and it will not be proper to discard them altogether. Those who advocate is starting from where we left off 1,000 years ago, they forget that whether it may or may not be desirable, it is definitely impossible. The flow of time just cannot be reversed. So, this pragmatic philosopher, the pragmatic political philosopher, as we can say so, was Pandit Deendayal Upadhyay. Uh, while he cherished for the ideals, the principles, but then he said that the flow of time just cannot be reversed. And then he says that the past cannot be disowned. In the past 1000 years, whatever we assimilated, whether it was forced upon us or we took with willingness, it cannot be discarded now. Let's accept it. And besides, we too have created originality, not a little. In the life of our society, we did not remain always mere passive witness to whatever new, challenging situations arose, nor did we merely react to every alien action. Yes, we were subjugated as a nation, but then we did not remain always a mere passive witness, and nor did we merely react to every alien action. We too have attempted to reshape our life, both individual and national, as required to face the new situations. Therefore, it will not do simply to close our eyes to all that has happened in the past 1000 years. So, this is the remarkable synthesis what Deen Dayal ji puts forward in the epochs of time Bhoot को वर्तमान से जोड़ते हुए और भविष्य की उत्कंठा वो प्रस्तुत करते हैं. And then Deen Ji moves on that foreign ideologies are not universal. Now, this is a kind of truth he tries to posit to 60 years back, and it is still so very relevant. There is a talk that there is a similarly, those who would like to make Western ideologies the basis of our progress forget that these ideologies have arisen in certain special situations and time. These are not necessarily universal. So they cannot be free from the limitations of the particular people and their culture, which gave birth to these isms. Besides this, many of these ideas are already out of date. The principles of Marx have changed both with the changing times as well as with varying conditions, to the extent that parrot like repetition of Marxism for problems facing our country would amount to a reactionary attitude rather than a scientific and pragmatic one. It is indeed surprising that those who claim to reform the society by removing dead traditions themselves fall prey to some outdated foreign tradition. So, in this way, uh, the aphorism of Sri Aurobindo that out of the ruins of the West would India emerge. So, the savants of the politically independent India, they almost shared the similar ethos of rekindling the original spirit of Sanatan Bharat. And as we will see that Deen Dayal ji falls back upon that so very spectacularly. Dr. Surbi, would you like to do the honors with a bit of a fast pace? Because we have to cover a lot of material in the 60-minute duration we have kept ourselves. 60 years and 60-minute. Because the slides would be available to our readers, to our viewers who would be in whatever capacity they want to, I would say, assimilate the essence, the quintessence of the doctrine of integral humanism. Dr. Surbi.
Our country, our problems. Every country has its own peculiar historical, social, and economic situations, and its leaders decide the remedies to the ills that beset the country from time to time, taking into consideration its background. It's illogical to believe that remedies which the leaders of one country decided to try for their problems are likely to be applicable as such to all other peoples. A simple illustration will suffice. Even though the basic organic activity is the same in all human beings, The drugs which may be helpful in England may not prove equally helpful in India. Diseases depend also upon climate, water, dietary habits, and heredity.
So Dindayalji draws a lot from the medical aspect so that the commoner can decipher and understand the pulse of the complicated doctrine which he's trying to pose it over there. Uh, you may please continue. Yeah.
So Pandit Dindayalji goes on to say, our country, our problems, even though the external symptoms may be apparently similar, the same drug does not necessarily cure all persons. Those who apply a single panacea to all diseases must be considered quacks rather than doctors. So, therefore, Ayurveda states that is, for the disease in each place, remedy suitable to that place must be found. Therefore, it is neither possible nor wise to adopt foreign isms in our country in the original form in toto, from in toto. It will not be helpful in achieving happiness and prosperity.
So this analogy from the medical world is quite very apt. There is an entire domain of personalized medicine that every human body reacts differently to a different sort of drug. So our nation body, the nation state, it has its own organic body, and its problems have to be addressed in its own chiti. That's a kind of a word, that's a term which Deen Dayalji would be introducing tomorrow on day three, the lecture three, what he gave. This is the verbatim English translation of Deen Dayalji's original lectures. There is slight spelling mistakes here and there from the translation wherever we just picked it across. We regret some of the errors out here. We will try to correct it. बिकॉज मूलतः ये जो सारे लेक्चर्स हैं दीनदयाल जी ने शुद्ध विशुद्ध हिंदी में प्रतिपादित किए, बट फॉर द सेक ऑफ लर्निंग फॉर द लार्जर ऑडियंस वी हैव ट्राई टू फॉल बैक अपॉन द इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशन ओनली. देन दीनदयाल जी गोज ऑन, जिसको हमारे यहाँ कहा गया कि आनो भद्रा कृतवो यंतु विश्वतः, let noble thoughts come to us from all directions, that human knowledge is common property. That is something which is a revolutionary thought process, the Indic paradigm, the Indic thought process, not, I would say, claimed or chained by IP rights or trademarks or so and so forth. That's where the ennobling aspect of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it comes into play out here. So, on the other hand, it needs to be realized that not all the thoughts and principles that have sprung up elsewhere are necessarily local in space and time. So, one, he says that our country, our problems, we have to be focused on our peculiar context. And at the same time, he says that not all thoughts and principles which have emerged from else various parts of the world are necessarily local in space and time. The response of human beings in a particular place, time, and social atmosphere may and does in many cases have relation and use to other human beings elsewhere and at other times. That's why the central purport of Deen Dayalji's doctrine, philosophy is human. मानव केंद्र में है इस पूरे विचार के, और वो मानव कहीं का मानव हो सकता है, किसी भी राष्ट्र, किसी भी सभ्यता के इतर, क्योंकि मानवीय मूल्यों की बात दीनदयाल जी ने, इट्स ए यूनिवर्सल फिलॉसफी व्हाट ही हैज एनंशिएटेड, बट obviously from the context, from the vantage of Bharatiyata. So there is a nationalism also underlying, but then there is a universalism which we can see beyond the confines of just past or future that way. So therefore, to ignore altogether that developments in other societies, past or present, is certainly unwise. So Bharat has been a assimilating civilization for that matter, and Deen Dayalji is adding upon it. He is taking that quintessential spirit of Bharatiyata further and forward. So whatever truths these developments contain must be taken note of and accepted. The rest must be scrupulously avoided. While absorbing the, now what is the process of the absorption? He says that while absorbing the wisdom of other societies, it is only proper that we avoid their mistakes or perversities. We should not just imitate it blindly. We should avoid their mistakes or perversities. That is so very important. Even their wisdom should be adapted to our particular circumstances. This is very important. Adaptation, not adoption, adaptation. In brief, we must absorb the knowledge and gains of the entire humanity so far as eternal principles and truths are concerned. Of these, the ones that originated in our midst have to be clarified and adapted to the changed times, because even the principles or truths which were our own but which were of the bygone era, they have to be clarified and adapted to changed times. And those that we keep with, that we take from other societies have to be adapted to our conditions. So appropriateness is something what Deen Dayalji has been advocating upon, not just becoming a kind of a blind imitator, either of the past or from the other societies for that matter. So moving forward, Dr. Surbi, would you like to take upon this slide?
So, the conflicting ideas. The Western political thought has accepted nationalism, democracy, and socialism or equality as ideals. Besides, now and then, there have been attempts directed at world unity, which took the shape of the League of Nations and after the Second World War, the United Nations organizations. For a variety of reasons, those have not succeeded. However, those definitely were attempts in that direction. Now, all these ideals have in practice proved to be incomplete and mutually opposing. Nationalism led to conflict between nations and, in turn, to global conflict. Whereas, if status quo is regarded as synonymous with world peace, the aspirations of many small nations to be independent would have never been fulfilled.
So एक बहुत ही remarkable संतुलन, एक judicious balance is somewhat devoid of any extremities. Deen Dayal ji is trying to put, and that is why his entire doctrine is integral in nature. It applies, it is universal, and it fulfills the aspirations of one and all, and that is the beauty. It doesn't leave any segment, any section unattended for that matter. That so, moving forward, the conflicting ideas that word unity and nationalism, they seem to be conflicting with each other, isn't it? So, some advocate suppression of nationalism for word unity, whereas other regard word unity as an utopian ideal and emphasize national interest to the utmost. The reality is somewhat in between what Deen Dayal ji advocates. So similar difficulty arises in reconciling socialism and democracy. Democracy, it grants individual liberty, but the same is used by capitalist system for exploitation and monopoly. And socialism was brought in to end the exploitation, but it eliminated the freedom and dignity of the individual. And mankind stands confused unable to decide what is the correct path for future progress. And that is what Deen Dayal ji offers it further. The West is not in a position to say with confidence that this alone and no other is the right path. It is itself groping. Therefore, simply to follow the West would be an instance of a blind being led by another blind. In this situation, now Deen Dayal ji comes to the Bharatiya Sabhyata Sanskriti. In this situation, our attention is claimed by the Bharatiya culture. Is possible, is it possible that our culture can point that direction to the world? The confused West, can we give a solution? This was 60 years back at the, I would say, heydays of the Cold War. The Cuban Missile Crisis had just concluded, and as we saw in the first lecture, that the same very year of 1962, the Chinese invasion happened on India, and on the global forefront, the Russian missiles, the imbroglio, the nuclear imbroglio between the United States and the USSR, it reached its zenith. So, from the national standpoint, Deen Dayal ji says that we shall have to consider our culture because that is our very nature. Independence is intimately related to one's own culture. That is a very, very fundamental political thought, that why independence of nation states is important, because there are indigenous cultures which want to have their own expression by way of their political independence. So the conflicting ideas continue that if culture does not form the basis of independence, then the political movement for independence would reduce simply to a scramble by selfish and power seeking persons. Independence can be meaningful only if it becomes an instrument for the expression of our culture. He gives a very, very fundamental definition that why a political independence is needed, and the entire raison d'etre of any independence movement is to enable the people the freedom to express their own culture. And such expression will not only contribute to our progress, but the effort required will also give us the experience of joy. And somewhere in the first slide, when Deen Dayal ji had talked about कि मन नहीं करता कि ये हम सोशल इकोनॉमिक ये जो मुद्दे हैं, आई एम जस्ट टेकिंग यू ओवर देयर, sufficient enthusiasm or the feeling of satisfaction, because until or unless there is joy in solving the economic problem or the social political problem, what purpose does it solve? And that's where the cultural expression becomes the centroid, the center stay of it all. So uh, yeah, yeah, just a moment. Yes. So I think yes, 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 yes. Yes. So, therefore, both from the national as well as human standpoint, uh, it has become essential that we think of the principles of the Bharatiya culture. So, whenever Bharatiyata comes into play, it is not just about the geographical entity which is governed by the Republic of India, that is Bharat. It is way beyond it. It has expression for the entire humanity per se. So if with its help we can reconcile the various ideals of the Western political thought, then it will be an added advantage for us. हम लोग deny नहीं कर रहे, we are not rejecting the Western thought, but the whole idea is reconciling the Western political thought that will give us an added advantage. And these Western principles are a product of revolution in human thought and social conflict. They represent one or the other aspiration of mankind, and it is not proper to ignore them. In the true spirit of assimilation, Deen Dayalji talks about it. And Dr. Sulbhi, if you would like to take on this slide, yeah.
Bharatiya culture is integrated. The first characteristic of Bharatiya culture is that it looks upon life as an integrated whole. It has an integrated viewpoint. To think of parts may be proper for a specialist, but it is not useful from the practical standpoint. The confusion in the West arises primarily from its tendency to think of life in sections and then to attempt to put them together by patchwork.
So we do admit that there is diversity and plurality in life, but we have always attempted to discover the underlying unity behind them. This attempt is thoroughly scientific. Dindayalji goes on to explain it that the scientists always attempt to discover order in the apparent disorder of the universe, to find out the principles governing the universe and frame practical rules on the basis of these principles. Chemists discovered that a few elements comprise the entire physical world. uh, Physicists, they went one step further and showed that even these elements consist only of energy. And today we know that the entire universe is only a form of energy. Philosophers are also basically scientists. The Western philosophers reached tip to the principle of duality. Hegel put forward the principle of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Karl Marx used this principle as a basis and presented his analysis of history and economics. Darwin considered the principle of survival of the fittest as the sole basis of life. But we in this country saw the basic unity in all life. Even the dualists have Dvaitavadi, they have believed that nature and spirit to be complementary to each other than conflicting. The diversity in life is merely an expression of the internal unity, and there is a complementary tree underlying the diversity. The unit of seed finds expression in various forms: the roots, the trunk, the branches, the leaves, the flowers, and the fruits of the trees. All these have different forms and colors, and even to some extent, different properties. Still, we recognize their relation of unity with each other through the seed. I think that's a biological view. Dr. Sulbi would have explained it, but the purpose is just to do the vachan, because each and every word is quite sacred, coming from such a savant who has really captured the imagination of Sanatan Bharat, and single handedly he erected the Bharatiya view of uh, integral humanism as he propounded. Dr. Surbhi.
So Panditji goes on to say mutual conflict, sign of cultural regression. Unity in diversity and the expression of unity in various forms has remained the central thought of Bharatiya culture. If this truth is wholeheartedly accepted, then there will not exist any cause for conflict among various powers. Conflict is not a sign of culture of nature. Rather, it is a symptom of their degradation. The law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, which the West discovered in recent years, was known to our philosophers.
So I think this is the quintessence of what if conflict is not a sign of culture of nature, rather it's a symptom of the degradation. The kind of conflict which we all saw and witnessed in Pahalgaon, I think this reflects the absence of this integral view what Deen Dayal ji has propounded, the Bharatiya view of assimilation, the Bharatiya view of Ekam Sad Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. Uh, I think this is a very foundational slide as we can see. So, uh, moving forward, Deen Dayal ji says that we have recognized.
I think Raghav is just joining back.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there was an internet connection issue we are facing out here. Uh, just a moment, I will come back. So, दीनदयाल जी से इसके ऐसा नहीं है कि हम लोगों को ये सर्वाइवल ऑफ द फिटेस्ट द रूल ऑफ द जंगल हमारे मनीषियों को नहीं पता था इट इज़ वेरी इट्स अ वेरी मंडेन इट्स अ बेनल काइंड ऑफ एन एक्सप्रेशन वी हैव रिकॉग्नाइज डिजायर एंगर एक्सेट्रा among the six lower tendencies of human nature. कोई बड़ी बात नहीं है but we did not use them as the foundation or the basis of civilized life और कल्चर. ये एक बड़ी बात दीनदयाल जी ने कहा कि ऐसा नहीं है कि हमको नहीं पता था. इनफैक्ट हमारे भगवत गीता में आसुरी संपद का 18 आसुरी संपदाओं का वर्णन है, तो 26 दैवी संपदाओं का भी वर्णन है. तो आर savants had an understanding but we never made them the basis, the foundation of our civilization for that matter. uh, just a moment, yes. Yes. So there are thieves and robbers in the society. It is essential to save ourselves and the society from these elements. We cannot consider them as our ideals or standards for the human behavior. Uh, that's very important. And survival of the fittest is the law of the jungle. The civilizations have developed not on the basis of this law, but by consideration of how the operation of this law will be the least in human life. If we wish to progress, we have to keep this history of civilization in our minds. तो सभ्य मानव की संकल्पना दीनदयाल जी करते हैं. लॉ ऑफ द जंगल तो ठीक है, जंगल की बात है. Moving forward, Dr. Surbi, would you like to take upon this slide?
So Pandit Dindayalji goes on to say about mutual cooperation. Cooperation also obtains in abundance just as conflict and competition in this world. Vegetation and animal life keep each other alive. We get our oxygen supply with the help of vegetation, whereas we provide CO2 or carbon dioxide, so essential for the growth of vegetable life. This, and animal life. This mutual cooperation sustains life on this earth. The recognition of this element of mutual sustenance among different forms of life and taking that as the basis of an effort to make human life mutually sustaining is the prime characteristic of civilization. To mold the nature, to achieve the social goals, is culture. But when this nature leads to social conflict, it is perversion. Deen Dayal ji goes on to say Culture does not disregard or deny nature. Rather, it enhances those elements in nature which are helpful in sustaining life in this universe and making it fuller, richer, and curbs others which obstruct or destroy life.
Yeah, please
Should I?
go on, Dr. Tupi. Yeah.
So then, Pandit Dindayalji also goes on and says, let us take a simple illustration, the relationship such as brother, sister, mother, and son, father and son are natural. These
So
are
these are same both in man as well as among animals. तो मानव और पशु में क्या अंतर है? I think दीनदयाल जी wants to express it. Rule of the jungle is fine, but then पशु से मानवीयता तक आना, that is the kind of stark difference he is trying to present in front of us by way of this example. Just as two brothers are the sons of one mother, the biological mother, so also two calves have a single mother cow. Where lies the difference? अंतर कहाँ है? So in animals, by lack of memory, the relation is short-lived. They cannot build up an edifice of civilization on these relations. But men, we can say so, humans use this natural relation as a basis to construct a more harmonious order in life, to establish other relationships flowing from these basic relationships so as to knit the whole society in a single unit of cooperation. Very, very first principles expression, very, very first principles enunciation Deen Dayal ji has presented out here. Thus, various values and traditions are built in humans. Standards of good and bad are constructed accordingly. In society, we find instances of both affection as well as enmity between brothers. But we consider affection as good and we aim at enhancing affectionate brotherly relationships. The opposite tendency is disapproved in human society. So, if conflict and enmity is made the basis of human relationship, this is what the central question the Indialji talks about. And if on this basis history is analyzed, then it would be futile to dream of world peace to result out of such a course of action. Then he just puts up a contradiction out here. So, a mother brings up her children. Mother's love is held up as the highest love. On such a basis alone, we can devise the rules regulating the life of mankind. Sometimes there are examples of selfishness and cruelty of a mother towards her child. Among some species of animals, mothers devour her progeny to satisfy the hunger. But on the other hand, among monkeys, the mother carries her child long after its death. Both types of behavior are found among living things. Which of these two principles of nature can be made the basis of a civilized life? Deen Dayal ji asks. So we cannot but conclude that alone which helps to sustain life can be chosen. The contrary cannot lead to a civilized life. Very natural. Human nature has tendencies, anger and greed on the one hand, and love, sacrifice on the other. All these are present in our very nature. Anger, etc., are natural to man and beasts alike. For the reason, if we make anger a standard in our life and arrange our efforts accordingly, then the result will be a lack of harmony in our life. Therefore, the exhortation, do not yield to anger. Even when the anger arises in one's mind, one can exercise control over it and one should do so. Thus, Control becomes a standard of our life and not anger. Carrying forward the mutual conflict, such laws are known as principles of ethics. And these principles are not framed by anyone, they are discovered. Now, just see the genius of the Indialji. A suitable analogy is that of the law of gravitation. That if we throw a stone, it falls on the ground. And this law of gravitation is not framed by Newton, he discovered it. So when he saw an apple falling to the ground from the branch, he realized there must exist such a law. Thus, he discovered this law, he did not frame it. Similarly, there are certain principles of human relations, such as if one feels anger, it is on the whole beneficial to the mankind that one must control anger. And these principles of ethics are then discovered. Do not tell lies to one another. Say what you know to be true. So, this is a principle. Its usefulness becomes apparent at every step in our life. We appreciate truthful person. If we speak lie, we ourselves feel unhappy. Life cannot go on. There will be a great confusion. So these very principles of human nature, they constitute our dharma. Now, Dindayalji comes to that core crux, kernel of integral humanism, the integral quartet of the Purusharthas. He would be just deliberating it, unraveling it out in his own characteristic genius. That a child does not speak lie by nature. Often, parents teach their child to speak untruths. When the child desires something, if parents do not wish that child should have it, they conceal the object and tell the child that the desired object has disappeared. The child may be fooled a couple of times, but soon knows the real situation and learns to speak untruth. So, this fact that by nature a person is truthful is a law that is discovered. Many other principles of ethics are similarly discovered. They are not arbitrarily framed by someone and they are universal that way. So in Bharat, these principles are termed as dharma, the laws of life. All those principles which bring about harmony, peace, and progress in the life of mankind are included in this dharma. On the sound basis of dharma, then we must proceed with the analysis of life as an integrated whole, the samagra, the totality, the comprehensive. When nature is channeled according to the principles of dharma, we have culture and civilization. Only then we have culture and civilization. Otherwise, it's the law of the jungle, the survival of the fittest, all those terms and terminologies, the precepts out there. So it is indeed this culture which will enable us to sustain and sublimate the life of mankind. Dindalji is not just concerned about Bharat per se, but the life of mankind. Dharma is translated here as a law. The English word religion is not the correct word for dharma. Uh, as pointed out earlier, an integrated life is the foundation and the principle underlying this culture as its aims and ideals. We have thought of life as an integrated, not only in the case of collective or social life, but also in the individual life. So integration works at this level also. The integration of the individual with the social, with the larger collective of nation and the humanity per se. So normally an individual is thought of in the physical bodily forms only. Physical comfort and luxury is generally considered happiness. But we know that mental worry destroys bodily happiness. Everyone desires physical comfort. But if a person is imprisoned and there he is given finest of the food, will he be happy? That's a question Deen Dayal ji asked. So, uh, a person does not experience joy on getting nice food if it is also accompanied by a few abuses. So, it is a human is not just a physical entity alone. That is what Deen Dayal ji is trying to establish. Here is a well known incident in Mahabharata, many of us would be knowing about it, that when Lord Krishna went to Hastinapur as an emissary of Pandavas, Duryodhan invited him to enjoy his hospitality. Lord Krishna declined his invitation and went instead to Vidura's home. Overjoyed by the visit of this much revered guest, Vidura's wife served the banana skins while throwing away uh, the pulp. दुर्योधन की मेवा त्यागी साग विदुरगर खाई सबसे ऊंची प्रेम सगाई. This is something which we sing in our traditional pantheon. But Lord Krishna enjoyed even the meal of a banana skin because it was offered with so much of love and affection. So that is why it is said that even a modest meal served with dignity and affection, it tastes better than the best of delicacies served with disrespect. It is necessary, therefore, to take note of the mental happiness. This is the point which Deen Dayal ji has tried to. So, the integration of the mental and the physical happiness, that is what is important at an individual level. So, similarly, there is an intellectual happiness which too must be considered even after a person gets comforts for the body and importance, affection, etc., which please the mind. If he is involved in some intellectual confusion, he is reduced to a state almost similar to madness. And what is madness itself? A lunatic may have all physical comforts. He may be perfectly healthy and properly cared for by his relatives, but he does not possess intellectual happiness. Intellectual peace is also essential and important. We will have to take all these things into consideration to create an integral whole. So, uh, Dr. Surbhi.
Now, what are the political aspirations of man?
So now he comes to the core crux because integral humanism is more about is a political philosophy, and that's what its relevance in the contemporary world of 2025 is so very much here. Yeah.
So, Panditji goes on to say body, mind, intelligence,
And
the soul. These four make up an individual, but these are integrated. We cannot think each part separately. The confusion that has arisen in the West is due to the fact that they have treated each of the above aspects of human beings separately and without any relation to the rest. When there was movement for democratic structure, they proclaimed man is a political animal and therefore his political aspirations must be attended to. Why only one person should be the king and others his subjects? Let everyone rule. In order to satisfy this political man, they gave him the right to vote.
yeah, please go on.
Now, he did get the right to a vote, but at the same time, other rights diminished. Then the questions arose. The voting right is nice, but what about food? What if there is nothing to eat? They wondered. Now that you have voting right, you are the king. Why need you worry? But man replied, what shall I do with the state if I do not get any food? I have no use of this voting right. I want bread first. Then came Karl Marx and said, yes, bread is the most important thing. The state belongs to the haves. So let us fight for bread. He saw man as primarily made up of body, wanting bread. But those who followed the path shown by Karl Marx came to realize that they had neither bread nor voting right.
Now, at
At
the
the
opposite end, there is United States of America. Now, the analogy gives a very contrasting view. Dr. Surbi, please carry on. Yeah.
there is both bread as well as voting right. Even so, there is lack of peace and happiness. The United States has highest list in number of suicides, number of mental patients, and number of persons using tranquilizers to get sleep. People are puzzled as to the cause of this new situation. Man obtained bread, he got his voting right, and still there is no peace, no happiness. Now they want back their peaceful sleep. Now they want back their peaceful sleep. Sound and undisturbed sleep is a scarce commodity in the present day America. Those who think realize that there is a basic mistake somewhere whereby, even after acquiring all good things of life, they are not happy. They are not happy. The reason is that they have not thought of the integrated human being. In our country, we have thoroughly considered this matter.
And that's what makes the Bharatiya culture so very unique. Dr. Surbi, please carry on. Yeah.
That is why we have stated that progress of man means progress of the body, mind, intellect, and soul of man all together.
All together, and that's a distinctive aspect from the Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, where they talk about the four needs that way, but it says that after one the next moves on. But Deen Dayalji says all together, it has to happen concurrently. That is where the integrated I would say existence come into place. It has to happen concurrently. Yeah.
Often it has been propagated that Bharatiya culture thinks only salvation of the soul. It does not bother about the rest. This is wrong. We do not think of the soul, but it is not true that we do not consider body, mind, and intellect of much importance. Other gave importance of body alone. Therefore, our attention to the soul is unique. With time, this created an impression that we are concerned only with the soul and not with other aspects of human being. A young unmarried boy cares for his mother, but after marriage, he cares both for his wife as well as his mother and discharges his responsibilities towards both of them. Now, if anyone says that this man has no love for his mother, it would be untrue. A wife also loves only her husband at first, but after the birth of child, she loves both her husband and child. Sometimes an unthoughtful husband feels that his wife neglects him after the birth of their child, but this is generally not correct. If that is true, then the wife has certainly slipped in her duty.
So
Similarly,
it's
while we recognize the need to pay attention to the soul.
We do not neglect the body. That is the integral view, that is the integral thought. The body and the soul go hand in hand. So Upanishads declare in unambiguous words that weakling cannot realize the self. Again, body is truly the primary instrument to discharge the responsibility that dharma enjoins. The fundamental difference between our position and that of the West is that whereas they have regarded body and satisfaction of its desires as the aim, we regard the body as an instrument for achieving our aims. We have recognized the importance of the body only in this light. The satisfaction of our bodily needs is necessary, but we don't consider this to be the sole aim of all our efforts. That's a distinction between the Western thought process, which is body centric, material centric, and our. We also Sharir Madhyam, Khalu Dharma Sadhanam, that is the Dhevakya of All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences, the premier medical institutions for that matter. So that civilizational clarity is out there. The civilizational integral clarity is out here with us. So here in Bharat, we have placed before ourselves the ideal of the fourfold responsibilities of catering for the needs of the body, mind, intellect, and soul with a view to achieve the integrated progress of man. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. They are the four kinds of human efforts. Purushartha means efforts which befit a man. The longings for dharma, artha, kama, and moksha are inborn in man and satisfaction. Of these four efforts too, we have thought in an integrated way. ये भी कोई अलग अलग नहीं है. We all need the four purusharthas. So Dindayal ji says that even though moksha has been considered the highest of these purusharthas, efforts for moksha alone are not considered to give benefit to the soul. On the other hand, a person who engages in action while remaining unattached to its fruits is said to achieve moksha inevitably and earlier. Artha includes what is known as political and economic policies. We all know about the Arthashastra of Kautilya Acharya Vishnugupta. According to the ancients, it used to include the justice and punishment also. So, uh, Kama relates to the satisfaction of various natural desires. Dharma defines a set of rules to regulate the social activity, artha and kama, so as to progress in an integral and harmonious way and attain not only kama and birth, artha, but also moksha eventually. So, this is the integral play of the Chatuh Purusharthas, what Deen Dayal ji is explaining. And thus, even though dharma regulates artha and kama, all the three are interrelated and mutually complementary. Dharma helps achieve artha. Even in business, one requires honesty, restraint, truthfulness, which are the attributes of dharma. Without these qualities, one cannot earn money. It must be admitted that dharma is instrumental in attaining artha and kama. Americans proclaimed honesty is the best business policy. In Europe, they said honesty is the best policy. We Indians, we go a step forward and we assert honesty is not a policy but a principle. That is, we believe in dharma not just because it is instrumental in acquiring artha, but because it is a fundamental underlying principle of a civilized life. It's a principle for us. Kama too can be attained only through dharma. Having produced the material things such as nice food, when, where, how, and in what measure it will be used, it can be only determined by dharma. That is what the chikitsaks, yukta ahar viharasya, yukta ahar or vihar, so that is also regulated. The fulfillment of the human desires, it has to be also done from a vantage of dharma only. If a sick person eats food meant for a healthy one, and vice versa. Both of them will be at a disadvantage. Dharma helps in restraining the natural tendencies of man, whereby he is able to determine what is beneficial to him apart from what is pleasurable. Hence, dharma is given the foremost place in our culture. Dharma is of primary importance, but we should not forget that it is not possible to practice dharma in the absence of artha. Now, here again, Deen Dayalji's interplay, the integrated interplay of the Chaturpurusharthas come into play. So, there is a saying that what sin will not be committed by one who is starving? Those who have lost everything, they become ruthless. Even a rishi like Vishwamitra, driven by hunger, broke into the home of a hunter and ate the flesh of a dog. Therefore, we are enjoined to see that there is enough wealth created continuously, since wealth also strengthens dharma. Similarly, the government has to maintain law and order and prevent chaos, which definitely destroys dharma. At the time of chaos, law of the jungle prevails, where the strong feed upon the weak. So chaos needs to be prevented at all costs, and that is the Raj Dharma. Therefore, stability in the state is also essential for the prevalence of dharma. 1965, uh, it was in the India's political maturity. It was a tumultuous time that way. In order to do these, education, character building, spread of idealism, and suitable economic structures are all necessary. Governments also fall inside the realm of artha. Excessive power of state is also harmful to dharma. It was said that a king should be neither too harsh nor too soft with his people. Heavy reliance on harsh measures produces a feeling of revolt in people. When state usurps the rightful position of dharma, then there is this evil of preponderance of power of the state. Dharma suffers thereby. And this is the reason of the decline of dharma in ruthless states. When the state acquires all powers, both political and economic, the result is a decline of dharma. In this way, if the state has unlimited powers, the whole society looks towards the state for everything. Officers of the government neglect their duties and acquire vested interests. These are all signs of the preponderance of the powers of state. Dharma suffers a setback. Hence, artha should not be allowed to acquire in either of these two ways. Karma too has been considered, Kama too has been considered on the same lines. If the physical needs are neglected and desires are suppressed entirely, dharma does not grow. So, very, very intricate relationship has been put forward. And dharma cannot be observed if one has no food to eat. If the fine arts which satisfy the mind are altogether stopped, then the civilizing influence on people will not be present. Mind will become perverse and dharma neglected. On the other hand, if greediness of the gluttons of Rome or sensuousness of Yayati prevails, then the duties will be forgotten. Hence, kama too must be pursued consistent with dharma. We have thus considered the life of an individual in a thorough and integrated manner. We have set the aim of developing body, mind, intellect, as well as soul in a balanced way. We have tried to satisfy the manifold aspirations man, taking care that efforts to satisfy two different aspirations are not mutually conflicting. This is the integrated picture of all the fourfold aspirations of an individual. This concept of a complete human being, integrated individual, is both our goal as well as our path. What should be the relationship of this integrated human being with the society and how the interests of the society should be enhanced will be discussed tomorrow. That is the day 3, that is 24th of April 2025. Dindayal ji delivered this lecture 3 in the year 1965. So we will be back tomorrow. We as a part of this integral Indic Intelligence Forum, as a part of it, what we are doing these renditions, we chose one Purushartha for a day. And day one, we had, as you can see on the backdrop, day one, we had focused on Dharma. Today's day, we felt like focusing on Kama. Tomorrow is a day to be focused upon Artha. And the final day, the 25th of April, it will be on Moksha. And from tomorrow, we would be having very special speakers who would be giving one perspective of integral humanism in action. We would be recording the lecture 3 the way we have done. And along with that, we would also be having a conversation with a set of eminent speakers. So stay tuned. Namaskar. Dr. Surbi, any closing words? It would be incomplete because you've been an ardent listener and a speaker as well. So, some quick close ups remarks.
So I would just conclude by saying that गागर में सागर भरना बहुत कठिन है. I said that this treatise which Pandit Ji has enunciated for mankind as an integrated whole is truly a saga, a Mahagatha, which is not to be devoured or savored, it is to be understood in its true letter and spirit. With this plea and prayer, prarthana, rather, I would say, we would टेक योर लीव फॉर टुडे. वाणी को विश्राम देते हुए, विराम नहीं, और कल के महामंथन के लिए फिर हम सज्ज होंगे. और इसी के साथ आप सभी को